was always curious about the change because I'm not only interested in just gaming. I'm also interested in sports. So I'm curious about the changing in how people look at betting because in sports you have people who do fantasy sports and you have people who are really they're interested in beyond their own team because I was always a fan interested especially like in fantasy football. You have people who will be fans of like let's say in Miami, they're fans of the Dolphins, but because of fantasy sports, they're also fans of other teams and they're fans of like specific players. And I admit I'm still like new to fantasy sports in itself, just how it works, how you pick all the players. So I'm really happy to be talking about expanding, betting, how it applies to esports, and to help us today learn about expanding that, we're here with Scott Cooley from Bookmaker.eu. Thanks for coming on and talk with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So, can you just tell us a little bit about, in general, what, how that came about, being able to, expand from people making bets for sporting and then moving on to esports?
Yeah, it's quite simple, Jay. I think that history tells us through thousands and thousands of years of documented records. Where there are two or more people competing in a game or a sport. Gambling on the outcome is going to happen. People have been doing it for, like I said, thousands of years, and it's something that's really new to us as esports is still in its infancy. But we are finding that it's gaining popularity, and it's something that we want to be heavily involved with in the future.
So, as far as you guys, you start off, of course, with sports and things like that. Can you tell us a little about with how your guys' company started?
Absolutely. Yeah, we started in 1985, so we've been around for more than 30 years, and we are an online sportsbook, casino, poker room that is open to worldwide customers. Anybody from the United States to China to India can log into our site with an account and gamble on sports or play casino or play poker. And we offer sports betting for basically every league under the sun. The big sports such as soccer, the NFL, college football, college basketball, the NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, even obscure sports such as surfing and cycling and cricket.
Oh
And,
wow!
and yeah, so you can, like I said, if there's a game being played, more than likely you can wager on it.
Now, is this something where you have to know, like surfing? I mean, I never even knew you could bet on that. I mean, like, is that something you have to know exactly what to bet, or does the site like teach you like how to bet?
No, it's a very specific I would say sector of the gambling world. You would be expected to know who you want to bet on and how to bet, but mostly as far as the odds go, everything's pretty basic. You have a spread and a money line and a total, and you're just betting against the odds makers. Basically trying to pick the right side. There's always a winning side and a losing side for the most part, and so you're just trying to get the right one, and whether that be an educated guess or whether you have some sort of inside information as to who might win the outcome of that sporting event. That's where you find value and place your wager.
It's really interesting because I've been to Vegas a few times, mainly for shows or like conventions and things like that. But of course, you walk through the casinos, you see the betting, and you see people that really get into it. And you watch and you see all the numbers. And like I said, that's something where I'm still trying to learn exactly what people look for. And they say that once Vegas gets into something, once you see them putting numbers, and yes, of course, you could bet on almost anything, but once you see people really start to put numbers into a sport, it's really arrived. And with esports, once you saw people starting to actually be able to bet on esports, that's how you really know it's starting to really hit its peak. You see it on ESPN, you're seeing it get crazy numbers on television, on Twitch, things like that. I mean, you know the business. What was it for you? What was that moment where you said, "Hey, it's time to add this to the company. It's time to get into this."
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Ja. I mean, the one trigger for us to recognize something that's growing is the broadcast. Is it being broadcasted to a mass audience? And once we saw ESPN televising it, and I think one of the Turner networks is starting a reality series very soon. You're seeing more and more events and tournaments being covered, and these arenas are selling out in a matter of minutes. It's an exciting sport to watch. It's much like football or basketball game. Where viewers can really get into it, and we're going to start seeing the personality of these kids, these competitors, really grow. And I think these guys are going to become household names at some point, and I think that we've recognized that it is the next big thing on the block, and because of that, we're gonna dedicate quite a bit of resources to making it bigger and better, more visible in our sector of the industry.
Now, is there like a ceiling as far as what people can bet on? Because I mean, with the different competitions that are out there, the different tournaments, I know like when you're talking about all the different things that you can bet on with your site, like surfing and things, with so many different type of tournaments, is there a certain competition level? Like obviously, it's not going to be like low level tournaments. Do you say it has to be like a certain purse level, a certain company level where that's where you can bet on a certain esports player or esports tournament?
Yes, we at the moment we do not cover every single tournament because, as you know, these tournaments are going on 24 hours a day, and because we don't have a full team dedicated to creating the odds and putting up the lines and the pages, we cannot cover everything. But we do cover all the major events. You're able to bet on individual team matchups with a spread and money line, as well as a futures bet. For example, we recently had the Dota 2 one Manila tournament. Odds to win that. Basically just futures odds. Who's going to win that tournament? So there's a few different ways, but yeah, we do not cover everything. And I think you asked about the limits. Right now, because we're just as new as the general public is kind of getting their feet wet with these esports. We don't allow our clients to bet a large amount of money on the matchups and the futures at this moment because we're kind of still honing our craft as far as figuring out the best way to create these lines, the best sources to find to gather information and generate the odds. So we don't want to overexpose ourselves because right now, a lot of the people that are betting on esports are people that are in the know that follow the gaming industry and they know the business inside and out and they know the competitors and teams and players. So because of that, they're some of the sharper ones are even ahead of where we are, where we want to be. And so because of that, we don't allow our clients to bet more than $500 on a certain matchup.
Yeah, I can see where that makes sense because I mean, with baseball or football or things like that, I mean, sure, I guess it's possible that you could have some of the people close to the players bet, but there's a lot more implications than maybe with a esports player who isn't yet up to the point where they're winning a lot of money, even though some of these tournaments are getting to that place. But I guess as like you said, this industry is still growing to that point. So as things go on, you'll have to modify your strategy. As far as the actual bets, is it still just win or loss, or is there more intricacies to it when people are placing a bet on these tournaments?
There's been some grading discrepancies. We've like as I said, we're kind of learning all about esports as well. Obviously, most of our backgrounds are all traditional sports, and we can tell you everything six ways sideways about the NFL or the NBA. But to most of us, we're of the older generation, and we're not familiar with how these tournaments are run or how the games are won or lost. So it is been somewhat of a learning process as far as grading them, but Yeah, absolutely. For the most part, for the spreads, we'll set a minus 1.5 or 2.5, so that way there's a winner or a loser. Because if you throw in a half point, then it can't just push. You can't just land on an even number. So, and then with the money line odds, generally there's a clear cut winner and loser. If for whatever reason there is a tie or a push, then the bettor is refunded his original bet.
Now, do you see more young people perhaps, coming into the kind of betting because of esports, and also maybe people who are a little bit older who are more used to the traditional type of betting on more of the traditional sports maybe being pulled to esports? Or do you see it as maybe the older people will stick to sports and younger people stick to esports? Are you hoping for that crossover?
Absolutely, we're always hoping for the crossover, and we've seen a bit of both. We find a younger, absolutely mostly a younger demographic betting on the esports. Much like UFC, UFC. I compare it to MMA a lot. It's kind of generating the same kind of buzz and growing quickly. And once odds started coming out on the UFC, that's kind of like you said, that's a telltale sign, like, okay, it's arrived. Well, we're seeing the same thing with esports. Most of it is younger, but there are older players, betting on it as well. And I think that goes back to being able to watch on TV, across the board, no matter what it is. A gambler wants to be able to place a wager and hopefully watch the outcome unfold in front of them live. And so whenever there is an event, an esports event on ESPN or another network, if it's a slow traditional sporting night, we may have some of our clients say, hey, well, what's on TV tonight? Oh, I can gamble on this. Well, let me go place a wager on Team Liquid or whoever it may be, and watch the fun, the excitement, the thrill, happen in front of me.
Well, if there was any doubt that esports wasn't really getting up there on top of the map as far as really up there with sports and everything else, this is proof of that. You can go check this out at Bookmaker.eu. Thanks, Scott, for coming on today and talking to us about this. It's really informative.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.